confession has not been defined in the Evidence Act. So when a particular word has not been defined, the meaning of that word is to be taken according to dictionary. But in some case law, confession has been held admission of guilty by the accused. Confession means admission of guilty of committing a crime by the accused. Means a statement made by an accused admitting his guilty. So, unless the accused admits his guilty in his statement, that cannot be treated as confession. For an example, X told before the magistrate that he killed Y as Y attempted to commit rape on his wife. Whether it will be a confession? It may come to your mind that as he is admitting that he has killed Y, that may be a confession. No, it is not a confession, because by giving such statement, X does not admit his guilty. Rather, he is justifying his act of killing of Y as a right of private defense. So here, this statement will not be treated as confession. A statement will become confession when in that statement the accused admits his guilty of committing an offense. So you must be clear that what is confession. And the other day we were discussing regarding admission, but admission has been defined in section 17 of the Evidence Act, but confession has not been defined in the Evidence Act. But confession means the admission of guilty of committing an offense by the accused. Admission can be made by a third party in certain circumstances, but always confession will be made by the accused himself. So you should have an idea what is confession. Section 24 of the Evidence Act provides what? Confession caused by inducement, threat or promise when irrelevant in criminal proceeding. The relevancy of confession comes in criminal case only. So confession when becomes irrelevant, we find in the sections from 24 to 26. From section 24 to 26, the legislature has made a provision that when the confession in such circumstances are irrelevant, that means that confession will not be taken as evidence to prove the guilty of the accused. Section 24 says, when a confession made by an accused person is irrelevant, when confession of an accused person is irrelevant, that is, it is not relevant in a criminal proceeding, if the making of the confession, if the making of that confession appears to the court, what? That it has been caused by inducement, threat or promise by a person in authority to the accused, and there was grounds for the accused to believe that by making such confession he will avoid some evil or some problem for the time being. So in such case, that confession is irrelevant. You should show the ingredients of this section. What it says? This confession must be made to a person in authority, and that confession was made due to inducement. Inducement means what? Persuasion, threat, or promise by the person in authority. What for? And it appears to the court. Court will decide whether such inducement, threat, or promise had created an impression in the mind of the accused, that by giving such confession, you will avoid some evil, some problem, or you up for the time being. That is temporal nature for the particular time. Then in such case, that confession is not admissible in evidence. But if it doesn't appear to the court that inducement, threat, or promise was of such a nature, that would not give a ground for the accused to believe that thereby he would avoid some evil or some problem for the time being, then in such case section 24 will not be applicable, and such confession may be admissible in evidence. For an example, X, the employer, he found that Y, his employee, has made some falsification of accounts. He told, for God's sake, you tell the truth. Or if you tell the truth, then God will forgive you. By that, Y made a confession before him that he had made falsification of accounts. So in such case, that confession will not be relevant as per the provision of section 24 of the Evidence Act. But if X said to his employee that if you tell the truth, I will not take any action against you. If you disclose the truth, then I will not file FIR against you before the police. So because of such threat, if Y gives any statement admitting his guilty, that he falsified accounts, then what will happen? That confession is irrelevant, because that threat, inducement, or promise was from a person in authority, and that will certainly create or certainly make the court to believe that the accused had grounds to make such confession to avoid some evil of temporal nature. So that's why that will not be, in such case, that such type of confession will not be admissible in evidence. So you should understand the provisions in section 24. So here, for this, to attract the prohibition, this enacted in section 24 of the Evidence Act, the following requirements must be satisfied. What are those? That the statement in question is a confession. That whatever statement the accused gave, that amounts to a confession. That means admitting guilty of committing an offense by the accused. Second, such confession has been made by the accused himself, that the confession has been obtained by reason of any inducement, threat, or promise by a person in authority. Who is a person in authority? A person who has any control over the accused. That differs from case to case. That may be an employer-employee, or a headmaster and a student. Suppose the student, there is an allegation that he committed a crime. or he committed a rape. He was brought before the principal of the college or to the headmaster. There, the person in authority, he promised that if you tell the truth, I will not take any action against you. Thereby, that student admitted that he committed a particular crime. So, by applying the provisions of Section 24 of the Evidence Act, such confession is not admissible in evidence because he was a person in authority. Then, such inducement, threat or promise must have reference to the charge against the accused. Regarding the accusation which has been made against you, such inducement or threat must be in regard to the charge as made against the accused. Then, the inducement, threat or promise must be, in the opinion of the court, sufficient to give the accused grounds which had appeared to him reasonable for supporting that by making it, he would gain any advantage or avoid any evil of temporal nature. The court, considering that inducement, threat or promise must be satisfied that because such threat or promise are of such a nature that in the particular situation that had given a ground for the accused to believe that by making such confession he would get any advantage or he would avoid any evil of temporary nature. So, no hard and fast rule can be laid. What type of threat, what type of promise will we treat it as a ground, as a ground to believe that the accused confessed in order to avoid and get any advantage or to avoid any evil of temporal nature. So here, you should understand the provisions in this as discussed. What is? That is confession made to a person in authority due to inducement, threat or promise. Promise with reference to the charge, with particular to charge by a person in authority, and if court believes that such inducement, threat or promise was of such a nature that had given ground to believe for the accused that by making such confession he would get any advantage or avoid any evil of temporal nature, then in such case, such confession is not admissible in evidence as per the provisions of Section 24 of the Evidence Act. So now, you should understand the provisions in Section 25. What Section 25? Confession made to police officer is inadmissible. What? It is a very small section. No confession made to a police officer shall be proved as against a person accused of any offence. Why? Why confession made to a police officer is not admissible in evidence? Because everybody knows that police is always interested to secure a conviction of the accused for the benefit of his service. In most of the time, police officers, they resort to third degree method to extract confession. So by making such provision, you see, the Britishers have made this provision in the Evidence Act in the year 1872. Why? By making such provision, the chance of police torture to the accused is thereby checked. Because when the police officer knows that any confession made to a police officer is irrelevant, then usually no police officer will attempt to extract confession by resorting to third degree method. So that's why Section 25 says no confession made to a police officer shall be proved as against a person accused of any offence. Accused of any, even not necessarily that he is arrested. Simply, when there is an accusation, at any time when a confessional statement, that means admitting guilty of committing an offence, is given by the accused, that is not admissible in evidence. Then who is a police officer? Police officer means a person who is authorized to investigate an offence and to file charge sheet. In case law, it has been decided that a custom officer is not a police officer because custom officer is not authorized to exercise all the powers of a police officer. But an excise officer may be treated as a police officer because he has been in Excise Act, the similar power with powers of the police officers are available to the excise officer. So that's why excise officer may be treated as a police officer. It is not confined only to the police officer, but some of the officers who exercise the power of the police under any other law for the time being force. So any confession made to a police officer by the accused is not admissible in evidence. This is section 25. Section 26 says, confession by accused while in custody of police officer not to be proved against him. Again, this is in the supplementary to provision of section 25. Confession to police officer is not admissible. Similarly, no confession made by an accused while in police custody also to anybody, that is also not admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 26 of the Evidence Act. Suppose a constable, police constable had taken the accused to the particular hospital for medical examination. While the accused was being under the medical examination, he made a confession before the doctor. But the police officer was not present there. The constable or any police officer was not present there. Still, that confessional statement given to the medical officer who medically examined the accused, that is also not admissible in evidence because at that time he was in police custody. So custody to anybody. What is section 26 says? What? Confession by accused while in custody of police. Custody of police may be lawful custody, even unlawful custody, not to be proved against him. That means when a person is in custody, any confession made to anybody, that will not be admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 26 of the Evidence Act. So now, in this regard, you should understand, confession may not be to the police officer, but to anybody, even to a third party. But as he was in police custody, his confessional statement is not admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 26. Section 20 explanation, here magistrate, but section 26 says, no confession made by any police while he is in custody of a police officer is admissible unless it is made to a magistrate. Only when the accused is in custody of the police, but if he gives any statement to the magistrate, then only such confession is admissible. But if he gives confessional statement to any other person other than the magistrate, that cannot be proved as against him. So section 26 says only if an accused is in custody and he gives any confessional statement before the magistrate, then such confessional statement is admissible in evidence or that can be proved against him. You are aware of the provisions in section 164 of the Criminal Procedure Code for recording confessional statement by the magistrate. When an accused is produced before the magistrate for recording the confessional statement, then the magistrate must satisfy himself that the accused is making a voluntary statement and whatever statement is giving, that is true. So, by putting some question, the magistrate will satisfy himself that the accused is giving voluntarily confessional statement between him. In this context, you should know, when a confession is given before the magistrate, that is called judicial confession. When a confession is made to any other person other than the magistrate, that confession will be treated as extrajudicial confession. A judicial confession is to be given more weightage than the extrajudicial confession. There can be conviction of an accused basing on the confessional statement recorded by the magistrate. That is judicial confession. But the requirements of law as provided in section 164 of the CRPC must be satisfied before recording that confessional statement. If the confession has not been properly recorded, that cannot be taken into consideration. So no corroboration is required to confessional statement recorded by the magistrate, because that will be treated as a substantive evidence against the accused. But so far as extrajudicial confession is concerned, some cases, as a matter of prudence, some corroboration is required. So that is called extrajudicial confession. Section 26 provides, when there is an extrajudicial confession, when an accused is in the police custody, then that cannot be proved against him. But when there is a judicial confession, even if the accused is in police custody, then that can be proved against him. So, extrajudicial confession, you should know the difference between extrajudicial confession and judicial confession. In this context, you should also know what is retracted confession. Retracted confession means, suppose a confession has been made by the accused. Later, he withdraws that confession on the ground that it is incorrect. He was because of some pressure he made that confession. As because a confession has been retracted, that doesn't mean that the entire his confession will go away. Even if there is an extrajudicial, a retracted confession, if the earlier confession was believable or was true, the court can record a conviction basing on retracted confession. In this case, the famous trial of the commission of murder of this late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, one or two of the accused persons, they had retracted their confession. Even if they had retracted their confession, their earlier confession was not totally ignored. The court, as because a confession has been retracted, the court will ignore the entire confession. No. The court will sit and consider and apply its mind whether that even if retracted confession, whether the previous confession was true, believable. So on that also, on that retracted confession, there can be conviction. So now you should know this judicial confession. So when an accused is in the police custody and he confesses before the magistrate, then that is admissible evidence. But while that accused is in police custody, he makes any confession which is extrajudicial confession, that cannot be proved against him. Here the magistrate means what? Magistrate means a magistrate appointed as per the provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code. the explanation added in this section says, magistrate does not include the head of a village discharging magisterial function in the presidency of Fort S.D. George. Previously, in some presidential towns or the presidency of Fort S.D. George, some headman of the village, was exercising the magisterial function. But that headman was not to be treated as magistrate. So, or elsewhere, only such headman is a magistrate exercising power of magistrate under the Code of Criminal Procedure. Only magistrate who is exercising his power under the Code of Criminal Procedure, then if any judicial confession is made before him, complying the provisions of section 164 of the CRPC, then in such case, such confession can be proved as against him. Now, section 27 is a very, very important provision. It is popularly sometimes known leading to discovery. It is told as leading to discovery. If a person while in police custody gives any information to the police, and even if it amounts to confession, if because of such information any fact thereby distinctly discovered, that so much of fact distinctly discovered, that is admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act. So, what provided that, because the word section 27, how much of information received from accused may be proved? How much of information received from the accused may be proved? That means while in police custody. What is this? Section 27 is a proviso to section 26 of the Evidence Act. What it says? Provide that when any fact is deposed to as discovered in consequence of information received from a person accused of any offence in the custody of a police, officer, so much of such information, whether it amounts to confession or not, as relates distinctly to the facts thereby discovered, may be proved. So, this section 27, what it says? That if a person while in police custody, he gives any information, and because of such information any fact is discovered, then such fact may be proved against the accused. So, this is an exception to the confession while in police custody. Suppose X was arrested for committing murder of Y, and when he was in police custody, he took the police and stated before the police that I killed Y with a knife which I have concealed in a heap of straw at my backyard. By saying so, he took the police and gave discovery of that knife. Here in this case, so much of fact discovered doesn't mean, even if he has admitted the fact of committing a murder or killing Y, that is to be excluded. That is not admissible. But the fact that he took the police and gave discovery of a thing which was hidden in a heap of straw, this fact is admissible. Only some physical fact is to be admissible in evidence. Law is settled that only psychological fact cannot be admissible. So much of fact discovered, that is admissible. That means he showed the place where he had concealed the knife used in the murder, saying that it was used in the murder. But so much of fact discovered, the place, the object, all sorts of facts discovered. So much of fact discovered, distinctly, this is separately from the confession. That is admissible in evidence. This is the provision in section 27 of the Evidence Act. Now, how much of information received? Confession made after removal of impression caused by inducement, threat or promise relevant. Previously we had discussed confession made before a person in authority due to inducement, threat or promise. That is irrelevant when the court believes or court is of opinion that such confession had been made on the supposition by the accused. By giving such confession, he would avert some evil or he would get some advantage. But section 28 says, if such a confession as is referred in section 24 is made after the impression caused by any such inducement, threat or promise has, in the opinion of the court, been fully removed, it is relevant. So after the threat or after the promise was there, but after 5 days that accused made confessed before the authority, person in authority, then that is admissible. If in the opinion of the court, what? If such a confession as is referred in section 24 is made after the impression caused by any such inducement, threat or promise has, in the opinion of the court, been fully removed, that this impression made to the accused had been fully removed, thereafter he has made the confession, even if to the person in authority, then that is irrelevant. This section 28 is to be read along with the provisions in section 24 of the Evidence Act. Section 29 is a very important provision. What it says? Confession otherwise relevant not to become irrelevant because of promise of secrecy, etc. Confession otherwise relevant. When confession otherwise relevant? Confession is not relevant when that has been made before a person in authority due to threat, promise, etc. as per section 24. Confession is not relevant when it is made before a police. Confession is not relevant when there is an extrajudicial confession, when a person accused is in police custody. So these three types of confession are not relevant. So that's why section 29 says confession otherwise relevant. Then other confessions are relevant. Only there are provisions of section 24, 25, 6, 25 and 26. These three sections make some confession irrelevant. But if a particular confession becomes relevant otherwise than the provisions as laid down in section 24, 25, 26, then that will become relevant. What says? Confession otherwise relevant not to become irrelevant because of promise of secrecy, etc. If a confession is relevant and is not hit by the provisions of section 24, 25 and 26 of the Evidence Act, then that will not become irrelevant merely because it has been, such confession has been made because of promise of secrecy. What is promise of secrecy? Suppose two friends are there. One friend promised to another, the person who is accused of an offense, that you tell the truth, then I will keep it secret. Or if he says that I take vow in the name of Lord Jagannath, if you will say about the crime, then I will not disclose it to anybody. But the other friend, he made the confession before him that he committed a murder. So that confession is relevant because that is not hit by the provisions of section 24, 25 and 26. A confession is irrelevant when it has been made before a person in authority due to inducement, threat or promise, and the accused believes that he would by giving such confession he would get some advantage or avert some evil of temporal nature. Similarly, in section 25, confession made before a police officer is not admissible in evidence. As then in 26, confession made while in police custody other than before the magistrate is inadmissible. So section 29 says, when a confession otherwise relevant, that means it is not hit by the provisions of section 24, 25, 26, is relevant even if such confession has been made due to promise of secrecy or by exercising fraud, even when the accused is drunk, still such confession is admissible in evidence. You go through this provision of section. If such a confession is otherwise relevant means that is not hit by the provisions of section 24, 25 and 26. It does not become irrelevant merely because it was made under a promise of secrecy or in consequence of deception practice. Deception practice, suppose one of the friend had put a tape recorder and while that person was making conversation with another, he confessed that because of such deception practice on the accused person, for the purpose of obtaining that confession, some deception was practiced. Or when he was drunk, even if the accused was drunk, he had given a confession. If that confession is not hit by the provision of section 24, 25 and 26, then that is admissible in evidence. Or because it was made in answer to question which he need not have answered. Some questions he did not have, but he had answered, and in that answer he has admitted the guilty of committing an offense. Or because it was made in answer to question which he need not have answered, whatever may have been the form of those questions. Or because he was not warned that he was not bound to make such confession and that evidence of it might be given against him. So now you should understand the provisions of section 29. Only such of the confession which are hit by the provisions of section 24, 25 and 26 of the Evidence Act are not admissible in evidence. Other confession are admissible evidence even if such confession has been obtained due to promise of secrecy or due to deception practice, or when the accused was drunk, or by the answer to the questions by the accused, which whatever be the form, even if he had not been warned that he was not bound to make a confession. This is section 29. Section 30 of the Evidence Act provides, when there is a confession and by one of the accused in a joint trial, and that confession is that inculpatory statement and also implicating another accused, then such confession can be used against the other accused. For example, X and Y are jointly facing trial for committing murder of Z. Here, X makes a confession, I and Y both committed murder, or Y is also guilty. So here, he himself admits the guilty and also implicate Y. So in such case, that confession can be used against Y. But only requirement is that there must be a joint trial. If that is not a joint trial, separate trial is going on for the accused, that cannot be used against Y. Suppose the X was only the accused and he had made a confession implicating him and Y, then in such case that confession cannot be used against Y if Y is tried separately for that offense in another occasion. So this is section 30. What it says? Consideration of proved confession, affecting person making it and others jointly under trial for the same. There is a proved confession. One confession is proved, and when more persons than one are being tried jointly for the same offense. More persons than two or more persons are facing trial jointly, and a confession made by one of such person affecting himself and some other of such person is proved. Confession made by one of the accused affecting himself and some other person is proved. The court may take into consideration such confession as against such other person as well as against the person who makes such confession. This is offense as used in this section include the abatement or attempt to commit the offense. Not only the commission of the offense, abatement or attempt to commit an offense, that is also to be treated as offense. Illustration: A and B are jointly tried for the murder of C. It is proved that A said B and I murdered C. The court may consider the effect of the confession as against B as they are facing joint trial. But A is on his trial for the murder of C. There is evidence to show C was murdered by A and B, and that B said A and I murdered C. This statement may not be taken into account consideration by the court against A as B is not being jointly tried. So here this provision regarding confession. In this context, you may get a question: what is admission? What is confession? What are the differences between admission and confession? Sometimes you get a question, so you should try to answer it in a tabular form. So the first thing, let us say, admission means voluntary acknowledgement of the truth of a fact. Admission means voluntary acknowledgement of the truth of a fact. But confession means a statement made by an accused admitting his guilty. So you should understand the first difference is that admission is voluntary acknowledgement of the truth of a fact. Acknowledging voluntarily the truth of a fact. But here, confession means a statement made by an accused admitting his guilty. Second, it is defined, the admission is defined in section 17 of the Evidence Act, but confession has not been defined in the Act. It is not a conclusive proof. What? Admission is not a conclusive proof. So it can be rebutted. But judicial confession is a conclusive proof. Then all admissions are not confession, but all confessions are admission. All admissions are not confession, but all confessions are admission. Admission is it is made in a civil case, but confession is made in a criminal case. Admission can be made on behalf of another person. Always confession is to be made by the accused himself. So we tried to understand the provisions in the Evidence Act regarding admissibility of confession in evidence. If anybody has any doubt, you may put a question. Yes, let us conclude. Thank you, everybody.